Hello, hello, and good morning. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist, and welcome to the International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich show. I am so excited to come to you every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as we walk through the book Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill in 1937. I am so excited about today's show and conversation because we're going to be talking with Cleveland Ozan, and he has got such an incredible background, and he's steeped in this particular success philosophy. Can't wait to get into this conversation. And before I bring on my co-host, because I am not alone, I'm going to encourage everyone to put in the chat. If you are watching this on YouTube, I want you to put in the chat a very special message to our guest, Miss Ann McNeil. Today is her birthday, so we want to put happy birthday in the chat as many times as you possibly can. We want to see if we can get Miss Ann to blush here because she is having a birthday today and we're celebrating another trip around the sun. So, Miss Ann, birthday girl, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Galen, and everybody, especially our special guest today, Cleveland. I always like to encourage all of us that we must all have a dream to have a dream come true. And in celebrating this birthday today, I am living, yes, I am, my dream, and it is coming true with all of you. So I want to say thank you so very much for the shout out. But again, we must have a plan and we must have a dream to make that dream come true. So thank you again for the acknowledgement of my birthday. Almost 80.
Well, hey, getting a year older beats the alternative. So we definitely want to celebrate you on your birthday. I also want to celebrate all the folks who are joining in with us on YouTube. We've got Colette Coleman. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. We've got Carla Hill joining in with us as well. Shannon Charlton is joining in with us. We've got some folks in the Zoom studio audience. Miss Janisa Brigo is here. Lisa Warren is here. Thank you so much for joining us as we come every Saturday morning. We really appreciate you guys taking this ride, being on this ride with us. If you are watching us in on the YouTube, please hit that thumbs up icon right underneath the video so that we can tell the YouTube algorithm that we've got something going on here other than the U.S. Presidential campaign, which is already getting started. If people want to know about anything other than the campaign, tell them that they need to be hanging out with us as we talk about Think and Grow Rich. Today's topic is specifically around decision. And we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have this very, very rich conversation with our guests. But Miss Anna, I want to come back to you and just ask you, what is it about this particular principle, this particular element of the success philosophy that makes decisions so important?
Well, Galen, I started off by sharing this comment about the fact that we must have a dream to have a dream come true, and which is the title of my new book. Yes, so before the year's out, you'll have that. But it actually does start with the decision about what is it that you want. It does not have to be money. It could be health, which is our wealth. But whatever it is, Galen, it is deciding, period. And I'm thoroughly convinced that once you make that decision, the way presents itself. Now, that in and of itself, when we begin to study the spirit, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it for yourself, the more you begin to tap into that spirit, if you will, that wisdom, that knowledge, that understanding of what's going on inside of you with your thoughts, then those decisions are made easily because you know what it is you want. And I can tell you, like a magnet, we are attracted to that desire and it is attracted to us. So, along with the principal decision, which is the very first one, I do strongly believe that this decision principle is key to all success. And oftentimes we think, Galen, it's the very large decisions, but it's not. It's that little decision. If you go back to the guest we had last week when I said, oh, I struggle, and it was just that word, and he helped me phenomenally. I don't use it. I mean, every single day this week, I have gotten up extremely early. Yes, I go to bed early, but I got up excited, very excited about what I was desiring to do when I rose. And so, again, decision principle, like everybody who decided to be here today, that was a very small decision, but I contend when you hear our guest today, it will change your life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that that decision is never as scary as we make it out to be. We build up in our mind how tough that decision is, but it really is just deciding to take that first step. You don't have to know where these other steps are going to take you. You don't even have to know what the other steps are. Just decide that today's the day, now's the moment, and we're going to get started and figure this thing out as it comes. So I can't wait to get into this conversation with our special guest. I'm going to share just a little bit about his background, and then we'll bring him in. Mr. Cleveland AUZENNE is an entrepreneur, and he is a Napoleon Hill certified instructor of the PMA Science of Success, serving as the vice president of the Greater Southwest Black Chamber of Commerce. Cleveland plays a crucial role in promoting growth and empowerment within the local community. I'm going to tell you, this guy has got his hands in so many different things. I can't wait to hear how he makes these decisions to get started with all the things that he's doing right now. So, Cleveland, come on in, man. Come on into this conversation. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
How's everybody doing today? Like you said, my name is Cleveland Ozan. Doing good, brother.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, hey, we're gonna jump into this conversation, but share just a little bit about your background and how you got into being not only a an apostle of the Think and Go Rich philosophy. Like I like to try to claim that I am that I'm really trying to follow this thing. I'm really trying to
Yeah.
follow. But you are a certified instructor. How did you get to a point where you decided that not only do you want to understand it, but you want to understand it well enough so that you can train and teach and educate other people?
Oh, good question. Good question. Well, I got started with that many years ago, back in 2014, with my wife. I was going through a lot. My wife introduced me to Napoleon Hill. Haven't even heard of Napoleon Hill. Didn't understand no principles. Didn't understand none of this science of success. Couldn't read for about no more than like 5 minutes, any of that stuff right there. So when I started getting to the philosophy of it, understanding it, making progress, started writing things down, uh, I just started taking off with it because we had opened a transportation company up called Ozan Transportation. So that's how I got started up in that process because we was going through a lot at that time.
Okay, all right. And then we're gonna get into this a little deeper. But I like to always start these conversations with an overview of the 13 principles, because as we talk about each of these principles individually, it's really when you take a look at how these all come together that you really start seeing the magic of it. So, Miss Ann, would you mind teeing up this video and why this philosophy has become so important to you?
Absolutely, Galen. Oftentimes when I start this conversation about these principles, I always like to start with my favorite principle, and I think each of us may have our own favorite principle, but my favorite principle is the first principle. And so as we listen to this video and then we begin to understand why we must all start with that principle of desire. But what is a desire if you don't have the faith to believe that it is possible for you? You may believe it's possible for others, but we want you to also know that it is possible for you. But then moving, Galen, from that step of desire to that step of faith, oftentimes we may not be aware that one of the ways you can use to cement this principle is with the principle of autosuggestion, which simply means an affirmation or statement, and even if it's a quote, but something you are affirming that you desire. We're always affirming other things, but are we affirming exactly what we desire, what color we want it to be, having that picture in our mind, that picture on the wall? Now, of course, Galen, I can walk through all 13 one at a time, but I would be remiss if I attempted to do the kind of job that this video will do. So as you look at this video and you listen, think about what is it that you're desiring, and then ask yourself the question, are you willing to make the decision to do the inner work in order to achieve your desire? So Galen, let's get the video started.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, But what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right, and there you have it, the 13 principles. So now, Galen, let's get started and see how do we apply these to our lives and our business.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I never grow tired of listening to that video. So Cleveland, I'd love for you to get back into the conversation and talk a little bit about the time before you were introduced to this book. And, I understand that life was totally different. Your wife probably saw you struggling or asking questions or wondering about some things. And out of her loving heart, she said, look, let me share with you a book that might be able to help. But talk a little bit about the time before Think and Grow Rich. What was that about? What was that like? And then what was the notion that encouraged you to take your wife up on the suggestion to really get into the book?
What's a good question. So the time that started this journey, started this commitment was the mother of my child. She wouldn't let me see my son. Um, couldn't see him, and he just stays 25 minutes away from here. Uh, they drive the whole 9 yards back and forth to court, and going through that at a time I did not understand. I was like, man, why is she keeping me away from my son? Wanted to be there. At the time, I was married, got separated, moved to Shreveport, and my wife right now, she was like, hey, it's a better way of conducting what you're doing, because I was handling much more in the physical realm, like just working hard, not thinking that process right there. I'll never forget we was in Shreveport and we was on the steps and she was like, it's a better way of handling it. And I'm like, what other way of handling it do you suggest? And she introduced me to the Think and Grow Rich and the other books as well too, because we met at a Union Culture bookstore in Shreveport. So that started off that whole journey on that part right there. Then we opened up our transportation company called AUZENNE Transportation. Definitely going through a lot, going through our whole business process, failing financially, didn't understand how business really works. So we was experiencing that, and there was a broker out of Texas intentionally going through putting Black companies out of business. So that point right there, I really had to dig into these principles right here.
Fantastic. Well, Ms. Anna, I want to bring you in because I hear a lot of similarities between Cleveland's stories and the story that you have told about your journey. So I want to bring you in because I'm sure you've got some questions for him.
Only the people on the Zoom could see my face, Cleveland, when you said that, because that is also a decision when we are confronted with that situation. I like to believe that all things truly do work together for good. And I would like to share, Galen mentioned about this election. not going to talk about that, but I'm going to just mention that somebody asked me a question, and then I'm going to come to my question for you. Somebody asked me a question about what were my thoughts. And I want to share this for all of us that look like me. When we say these words that all things truly do work together for good, what does it look like? What does it really look like? This is a decision that we must decide. What does it really look like? I believe that when God told Moses to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go, we oftentimes skip over the fact that Moses decided to go to Pharaoh, but on the way, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And for those of you that's listening on the Zoom or on YouTube or even in the future, put in the chat how many times, I don't know if Wayne was on today or, those other people who are biblically inclined, regardless of religion. How many times did he decide to go, and on the way, the heart of Pharaoh was hardened by God? We're talking about a decision here. We're talking about people intentionally because of the color of our skin. What's the decision that we must each make to press our way, to persevere, if we believe that all things truly do work together for good? You see, Pharaoh's heart was not hardened once or twice or 3 or 4 times. But when you think about all of the plagues and all of the things that came against him, even to take his firstborn son, how much are we willing to do to decide to press our way anyway, knowing that oftentimes these trials and tribulations, like Job, are designed by God to strengthen us. And so it doesn't matter what comes before us, what decision must we make to press our way? So my question coming to that backstory, because when you shared what you just shared about people intentionally designing to put people out of business because of the color of their skin, everybody didn't make it. Some people buckled, but some people, Cleveland, for example, pressed his way. So can you share with us, what decision did you make, or do you recall making, to not surrender to that? But not only just not to surrender, but also, because I'm assuming with your involvement with the chamber, but also deciding to do something about it to help support other people who, may buckle up underneath that fear. So what you share?
Good question, good question. So at the time, I did not understand why. I understand to some degree. My wife, she didn't understand. So what prompted me to keep persevering was my dad. He was the first Black alderman in the town where we live at. So it was heavily involved in politics. So I understood that the medical transportation was a lot of politics involved. And this particular broker, this other gentleman, he was going around intentionally telling Black companies, hey, I'm going to send over X amount of police over to Louisiana to put you guys out of business. And I was like, man, now that ain't about to happen like that right there. So I've had many transportation companies call me. One lady called me crying. So in my mind, mentally, I'm like, nah, I can't just let you come around parading around Louisiana like that, saying that you're going to put especially my people out of business like that. So I knew that the decisions I made was going to affect the future transportation company. So I linked up with my state representative, senator, and a couple of other state representatives and providers to come up with a bill so that these brokers won't do this again. Because what they was doing was taking providers outside of their area and putting them in other areas to wean them out of business. So, and this other broker took a lot of companies out of Texas to bring to Louisiana to put these companies out of business. So, as a man, as a black man, and as the way I was raised, I could not let that take place just because of these other providers have families and they have kids. So I didn't rock with that, because I thought about what I went through with my son, and I made a decision from there because I always use the acknowledge that I have no other options. That is a commitment that I made back in 2012. So that's why I was pumped to do those things.
Now, a follow-up question, Galen, and this is for you, Cleveland.
Mhm.
How did these other principles, not just the principles, because as a part of the foundation, we study lots of different books, not just this one book, right?
Yes.
The Think and Grow Rich, because Napoleon Hill wrote many books, and the foundation is, working with all of the philosophy period, which includes many other books. So can you share with us during this time, were there any additional principles or processes or information from this Think and Grow Rich philosophy that you had to connect with or pull on in order to continue on that road of these decisions?
So that's I didn't understand how the Think and Grow Rich that came years down the road. But what I can tell you is that recently, within the last year and a half, these principles have aided me and abetted me in so many different aspects of my life because everything that I'm doing right now is definitely intentionally, even with the chamber, things that I'm doing, I'm thinking over and actually writing down what my purpose is. So these principles have I'm like I was using now, I'm like a kid in a candy store because this is the blueprint right here. Just knowing that fact right there, I can definitely intentionally create my own reality up in these things.
Awesome, Galen.
Hey, yeah, I want to read something from the text because for me, this is at the crux of what you're talking about right now. It says the value of decisions depend upon the courage required to render them. The great decisions which served as the foundation of civilizations were reached by assuming great risks, which often meant the possibility of death. And so for me, that really highlights the difference between making a choice and making a decision. So talk a little bit about the courage that was required for you to make the decision about saving your business and then stepping a little bit into politics and helping to save some other businesses, as well as the decision to do what was necessary for you to make sure that you were in your kid's life. What kind of courage was required for you to make those kinds of decisions?
Good question. So one thing I learned that the house is on fire. And when I came up with that analogy like that, I'm like, everything from there, I have no option but to make it happen. Uh, because once I learned what purpose I make, I learned that, like I said, it's not an option. I have to make this thing take place. No matter what I have to do legally to make it happen. And it feels good. That courage builds up faith and trust. It lets you practice that. Just knowing that you could develop constantly day by day trust and faith. So knowing that I build up on that part right there. So in anything I put my hand on or touch, I build up on that in the chamber. No matter if I'm dealing with my crypto or actually in my philosophy, even in my transportation company, to make it like an example.
Yeah, I'm sure there were a number of scary moments even still. Talk a little bit about those times when and I can totally appreciate your decision that this is how it's going to be, and no matter what it takes, we're going to happen. There had to be some moments though in the midst of that, and we're not talking about the principle of perseverance. specifically, but I'm sure perseverance had to kick in because the only thing I know for sure is that no plan will go according to plan.
Mhm.
Tell me about some times when I made the decision, but boy, I tell you that other side sounds looks a whole lot more attractive than what I've got to go through to make
Yes,
this a
yes.
reality.
So yes, I did have many times like that, literally. And I could say one thing for our home, we had our contract issue. Those are one of the times that I was like, man, did I make the decision correctly or incorrectly? And that wasn't no fun. That was one of the things that that kind of buckled me down and humbled me in that sense right there. So to answer your question, yes, sir, that was one of the times that I had to rethink some things. But at the end of the day, that's when faith and trust came.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've got the honor now of having two certified Napoleon Hill facilitators and trainers
Yeah.
on the show with me. So
Yes.
I want to ask this question of both of you, and I'm going to toss this to both of you guys, because very often I will talk to people, or they will hear that I do this program on Think and Grow Rich, and they automatically go to rich being defined as money. And rich is money, right? And that is absolutely a definition. And you got to have money to do a lot of really, really important things. But I often struggle with trying to explain how there's a broader definition of riches. How do you describe to people that rich could mean your health? It could mean your relationships. It could mean any number of things. It could also mean money, but there's a broader definition. How do you describe the broader definition of what rich could mean in everyone's lives? I'll start with you, Cleveland.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So the way I look at it from my journey, I look at riches and wealth as in one. My dad always told me that, hey, as long as you got your health, you're a successful black male. So I always kept that in my mind mentally that, hey, rich is wealthy. And as I'm going through the ladder of things, I know that health is number one before anything else. Mental health is definitely number two, and finances. So looking at those perspectives, I can achieve way lot more having a strong mental capacity, knowing that right there.
Mm. Oh wow! Especially in today's environment, your mental well-being is really something people are mindful of right now.
Yes,
What
sir.
about you, Ann? How do you approach that conversation?
You know, Napoleon Hill said that greatness is the ability to recognize the power of your own mind, then embrace it and then use it. So for me, when I think about riches, and as we know from the study, there are 12 endurable riches. Money is number 11. Money is number 11. I mean, freedom and all of these different things come before money. And so studying this philosophy since 1979 has helped me to better understand, which is why we have the International Mastermind Association. We'll talk about that later. But having a dream in every single area, to me, is where the riches and the richness of life comes, starting with my spiritual, and then my family, and then the finances, and then the health and the education. Because again, when we each think about why are we sitting here having this conversation, we are expanding our wisdom, our knowledge, and understanding. How much is that worth? How much would each of us take in money to buy the right to learn and grow? We wouldn't pay, because the joy is in this journey of becoming, not being, but the becoming journey. But what about our personal development and our business or businesses or profession? The joy, I think the wealth that comes in that. But then let's talk about the wealth of uh, being able to create anything that your mind and your heart desires. What about the creativity and the wealth that comes from, and Cleveland just talked about this, but being able to serve in a civic capacity, whether it's your chamber or your children's school, just being able to serve. I'm a Rotarian also, and our motto in Rotary is service above self. Right. But then let's talk about recreation, because Galen, as you know, every quarter I love to go somewhere. Right. By the way, I am, for those of you that just came on, today is my birthday. And so next year I will be celebrating on that 6-month cruise. Yes. Yes,
Wow.
that one. Yeah, that one. And I'm saying that to go back to your question. There's so many areas of being conscious of what's truly important in life. And it's not about them now being able, and Galen has said this before, but being able to travel first class, first coach on a 20-hour flight can make the difference in the quality of life. But I do recall when I first started, I was on a payment plan just to buy a ticket. So again, Galen, going to your question, and an excellent question, and I'd like to challenge each of us that's listening. Health is our wealth.
Mhm.
Our relationship here trumps all the wealth we could ever imagine that we want. And I forget who said it, if they could buy one more moment of time on their deathbed, what would they give everything they own just for one more moment of time? And so, Galen, it's an excellent question, but I think that we each must also come back to the principle of decision, because it is not the money when you get to decide, do I take the 5 minutes to read this bedtime story, or do I take that 5 minutes and sit in front of the TV? So those are some of the things that are rich, that gives us the richness, if you will, of life. And so those would be my response. I wasn't always like that. So let me just make it very clear, because I've been on the other side of this journey. And that is why I am so committed, if you will, to continuing to share this philosophy, because it is not all about the money.
Right. I love it. So Cleveland, I want to come back to you too, and I feel like we're mixing principles, but they all support this principle of making a decision. I can often tell when someone is serious about a decision that they've made when they start talking about the people that they have assembled around them in order to help them execute this thing that they say that they want to do. And so that's coming a little bit into that the power of the mastermind. Talk a little bit about the mastermind that you assembled around you once you decided that this was a decision that you want to make. Who did you gather around you, and why? What role did or do they play in your success?
So one of the first people, like Napoleon, who stated is your spouse. I've learned that because we stay together, we have our business together. That was the first man of mine, only because of this both spiritual connection that we have, to put that out there. So that was the first person. Next was being in the being a certified instructor, having that group around me as well too is definitely a big key, because you have people to lean on and to brainstorm with as well too. And in the chamber is me and my president. We mastermind on quite a bit, a lot, just to strategically mastermind as well too.
Fantastic. Sounds like a well designed mastermind group.
Yes, sir. Yes. It's priceless. It's priceless. And I'm glad that I've got the opportunity to be around individuals like that in the continuation of all of this, because it helps you form a framework on commitment and trust. I've always go back to that right there, commitment and trust. Practicing that right there is definitely key. And like Mr. Hill stated that, uh, yeah, we all have to have these principles to work in unison together.
Fantastic. Hey, we are talking to Mr. Cleveland Ozen, and he is a certified Napoleon Hill instructor. He's an entrepreneur. He's a member of the Black Chamber of Commerce in his area. And this is a conversation about decisions. So please get your questions ready. You can type them in the chat. You can type them there on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, again, if you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video so that we can tell the YouTube algorithm that we're here, we're having a rich conversation, so that they will let other folks know. Also, I want to just acknowledge so many people watching us on YouTube. We got Latanya who's joined us. I think Latanya switched from being in the studio to watching us on YouTube, so thank you for that. Laura Jackson, Laura, the creative, fantastic. Let's see, Laverne Blackwood is here. Doretha, thank you for always being part of this conversation. Audrey Crothan, Yolanda Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. Please get your questions ready for Cleveland, because we are having an amazing conversation about the practicality of doing this. In action. It's one thing to understand and know this conceptually. It's another thing to put this in practice. And Imelda Wallace just jumped into the YouTube chat. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. We just finished talking about the importance of having like-minded people around you. And one of the things that you've created is this annual meeting. So talk a little bit about this annual meeting and the power of having all these people around you who can speak into your hopes, your dreams, and your goals for the upcoming year.
Galen, interestingly, just today, in preparation for this podcast, and in celebration of my birthday, I had a moment, Galen, when I looked at what I am doing today was designed in writing 40 years ago. Can I say that again? When I look at what I am doing today, because of this philosophy and these principles, but more importantly, a mastermind group that we formed with Dr. Mia Merritt, Nafreda Thomas. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't remember everybody's name. Alice Fincher, Isabella Rivers, Lawanda, Gail Say, 10 of us. We met every single Saturday at 7 a.m. before Uber conference, before Zoom, before all these platforms. We would physically go to each other's homes and we would mastermind our written goals. We started with page 28, which basically are the 6 steps. And as we grew, we began to realize that 1 week goals was not enough. A month goal was not enough. 6-month goals was not enough. A year goals was not enough. 5 years was not enough. And I had the nerve at that point to guess, to see my future in the present of what will I do when I'm 92, 82, 72. I turned 70 today. And I just wrote some things down. 1 little goal, and then it was 8 areas. Now it's 10. And Galen, Cleveland, and everybody else, today I had a moment, because those things that were written down then is what today is. And of course, I'm working on 92 goals. And so to come to your question about this annual meeting, when we wrote these goals, we started meeting once a year in each other's homes, until 1 year we had 92 people in my house, and we knew we needed to take it to a hotel. They were not all there at the same time. 92 that circled through during the day, which was a 12-hour day because nobody wanted to go home. And from that day to this day, now we host an annual meeting for your life. Now, this meeting for your life includes your family and friends and coworkers. I couldn't find a place, Galen, that I could go. You see, I'm involved in over 50 different civic organizations, but each one focused on something different. But I couldn't take my children, and then I didn't have any grandchildren, but could not take my children to each one of those. So I want everybody to think about this. Where can you go with your entire family, your parents, your grandparents, your children, your spouse? And each individual is required, yes, even the children, to bring their life in writing. Where do you go? I couldn't find a place. And so with a group of friends, we created a space and a place called the International Mastermind Association, utilizing these principles of Think and Grow Rich to set goals in 10 areas of our lives: spiritual, family, financial, health, education, personal development, your business or your profession, the recreational area, creativity, and civic. And we encourage you to write these goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And like I said, right now I'm in my 40 plus year. Now you can join us if you're interested in having a better quality of life. Galen and I and all of us who've attended, we will tell you it is work. It is not the work that's outside of you. It is the work that is inside of you to become that which is required of you to achieve the desires of your heart. It is the work that is required of you to become that which you desire to achieve in every area of your life. And so I'm taking an executive privilege here for just a moment to go this deep, because there will be some of you that will not hear me today. And when you replay this and you replay this and you replay this, you will realize that you really have no place to go. You can go somewhere for church, that's spiritual. You can go somewhere, golf, that's recreation. You can go somewhere for creativity, the park. But where can you go for every area of your life with your family? And so you can join us on January 3rd and 4th, 2025. Space is limited. Register today and register your entire family. And like Galen likes to say, don't wait, because the longer you wait, the investment goes up. And my friend Les Brown likes to say, and by the way, we know Les Brown as the motivator, but if you listen to Les Brown podcast here, you will know me as the motivator to the motivator, because Les Brown and I have been friends since 1977. Since 77. You're not going to find a place of accountability for all of the areas with your family except this place. So you can go to the International Masterminders with an S.com, International Masterminders with an S.com, and join us for our Think and Grow Rich annual meeting for your life in writing. So Galen, that's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I tell you that that's a story. That's also a story that I never grow old of hearing about, and it is absolutely a worthwhile adventure to attend that annual meeting. And as Ann likes to say, this is not a conference. There's not going to be. There's no keynote speakers. There is no goodie bag. I've gone like 5 or 6 times. I haven't gotten one goodie bag. When we talk about the whole family going, the kids being there, those kids, don't let the smiley faces fool you, because those kids, they ask you the toughest questions about your life, about your goals, because they don't understand all the stuff that we say to ourselves about why things didn't happen the way we said they were going to happen, or why we can't do the things that we say that we're going to do. They don't understand that. They just understand you either did it or you didn't do it. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And I don't understand what all this other stuff is about. And that's what you need in your life from time to time. So with that, I want to come back to you, Cleveland, and just kind of get your reaction to a question. There's a question you may be familiar with. Latanya Ozan. She says, what role do you believe networking and community play in achieving success? We talked a little bit about the expansiveness of everything that you're into. We talked a little bit about the power of your mastermind. But what do you believe to be the power of networking and community relative to achieving success?
The power of networking, when I first started, when I first had my first transportation company, gone to different events, to be honest with you, didn't really understand what I was doing. All I knew, I like to talk to people. Didn't have a purpose now. At that time, didn't have a purpose, didn't know where I was going. But I knew I wanted to go. I made a decision that I knew I wanted to go somewhere. Didn't know where at the time, but going on different events. We have these events called the elder awareness events back home. So I started that process right there. Then started going to different events in the political realm. Then I started going to other events on speaking engagements, different events on personal development. So networking is a growth. Uh, didn't know what mentor was until I started moving in different realms. So the importance of networking is definitely the importance of growth mentally, and it grew my life as well too. So 100%.
Fantastic. And then we got another question from Nakia, and she wants to know, which principle did you find most challenging to apply, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Oh, that's definitely a good question. The first principle is budgeting time and money. Well, that was one of the things because I knew I had to. That was definitely a principle I had to work on because I didn't know how to budget my time and the money, and that came from working that principle day and night, literally writing it down, saying it as my affirmations constantly. So that was the bad boy right there.
That was the one.
Yeah, that was the one right there. Because before my wife was always telling me, hey, watch what you do with your time and the money. So when I first got into the transportation world, I came with a 9 to 5 to some degree mindset, so that I didn't understand how to budget any of that. So this was all new to me. So I had to learn that process. So that's why whenever I got back about a year or something ago from the Napoleon Hill Foundation on starting the instructor, that's why I just never gave up after that because I knew this was important. This is a blueprint for me, especially as an adult.
Gotcha, gotcha. Hey, I got one more question. I want to go back towards to where we began, but ask a slightly different question. When did this book become more than just a book for you? Because I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of books on my shelf, and most of them I've read once, got the concept, and kind of moved on to the next one. But this is a book that I've read 7, 8, 9 times. I've taught, 8 different classes on it. I'm here every Saturday morning. I think I've been here for the past 4 years. Every Saturday morning. This is clearly more than those other books that I have on my shelf that I've read just once. When did this? What was the moment when this became something that you said, hey, there's something to this that's more than just a concept to understand. Do you remember when that was, and what caused that to happen?
So what caused that to happen? I knew that this book literally gives you the blueprint. When you actually see this beyond other books, it teaches you step by step because we're dealing with mind, dealing with the physical body, and hearing other people's stories. When I was experiencing that in the transportation, when I started just looking at the purpose, the decisions, when I started looking at those principles, I'm like, okay, this book has some tracks to it right here. Uh, and beyond any other book, uh, just to know that they have countless of other individuals that have succeeded and actually shown the track record up on this right here and actually giving you, hey, you must write this down in order to achieve success, knowing that the mastermind is behind that. So as an adult, just seeing this blueprint right here is like, yeah, it's beautiful.
It is. It really does spell it out. And
Mhm.
I had a similar moment. I spent a lot of time trying to help leaders understand what's important for them and how they can be successful. And one of the chapters in the book, it starts talking about the principles of leadership. I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
second, this is the program I've been trying to figure out. It's right here. It's right here.
And can I say something? It helped me build so much confidence. So it helps me just to know that you can have a book, you can have somewhere to where that no matter what you're going through in your day, business, personal, it helps you recognize those things right there. And to see, I call them the AI of his day. I'm like, man, this guy is the AI of his day. Just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And to help build confidence, character, different skill sets, and to recognize leaders in other individuals as well too.
Well, fantastic. Well, I can't believe how quickly the time is running from us. So, Ann, I want to come back to you and ask, what are some key ahas that you've gotten from this conversation? And then how can people get a hold of you if they want to, number one, wish you a happy birthday? And then number two, if they want to get some of the insight that you share with us each week?
I would say my number one, and thank you so very, very, very much, Cleveland, for being willing to follow your wife's lead. Yes, smart lady. I've met her, and you have a jewel. And so, of course, we're going to have her on the podcast also. Her story is phenomenal. My major takeaway is the decision that you made, and I got a warm feeling just in my heart, but the decision that you made and are still making to do something about a wrong you saw and you experienced. And it just resonated with me so much because of being a Black woman in construction and being the first in our state and deciding to start an organization called the National Association of Black Women in Construction. And just to know that that decision is not an easy one, but understanding that you are called for such a time as this. And I go back to my story about Pharaoh. I do believe that God is giving you the challenges of life to strengthen you. And that was my major takeaway. Because if it's easy, anybody can do it. It's not easy, and you're doing it. And so that's my major, major, major takeaway, to encourage me that is service above self. And so no matter how hard it gets for you and for all of us to decide, cut it up, to do something about the injustice. And so that's my major takeaway. And for those of you that's listening that would like to have a better quality of life in every area of your life, you can connect with me by texting the number 59925. You can text the number 59925. And in the chat, just put the word Ann, that's my name, ANN, in the chat. And I will follow up and connect with you to see how we can help take you to the next level in your business and life. And again, Cleveland, thank you so very much for sharing your story.
All right, Cleveland. Now, what about you? Again, this has been an incredible conversation. Would love to hear any key concepts that you want to share with everyone as we end this conversation, and then how can people get a hold of you if they want to access your expertise?
Good, good. So, and that goes for the both of you guys. The decision to constantly do this every Saturday, that is a decision and a commitment. This is something that I'm learning. So when we talking about decision and a decision that we're making a commitment to ourselves and being in a space like this. You guys are making a commitment to everybody else. So this is definitely inspiring to be with you guys here today. And
And
you
then
can
how
reach
can
me.
people get a hold of you if they want to take advantage of what you do?
They could email me at Cleveland, Cleveland, at blackgoldnetwork.com. And you can reach me at my transportation company, iRideTransportation.com.
Fantastic, fantastic. This has been another incredible conversation. I just get so much from hearing from people who are living these principles. It's one thing to read the book and understand the principles. It's another thing to read the book, understand the principles, and actually have the courage to activate these principles in your life and achieving the things that you said you want to do. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. You can find me on all kinds of platforms. And my website, you can go to galenbingham.com or you can go to killglobalcoaching.com. We will find a way to help you get closer to the goals and dreams that you have for your life or for your organization. But the most fun way to get a hold of me is to go to my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We're on every podcast platform. We talk to leaders all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. I double dog dare you to try us at least once. I guarantee to you that you're going to get some sort of insight that's going to help you be more successful as a leader. Well, this has been another incredible conversation with an apostle of the Think and Grow Rich philosophy. I can't think of anyone better to have this conversation than today's guest, which is Cleveland AUZENNE. And I'm going to encourage you to be with us every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you can find this show. We are going to be stepping deeper and deeper into this philosophy. Until next time, I want to bid you success and pray that you will think and grow rich. Until next time, take care.